They come out of the room of the house. Jonah, Mary, and Mark are there outside, and they kneel down, worshipping Jesus. Just to stop for a moment there. Jonah and Mary, if I remember rightly, are the parents of Mark, and they live in Gethsemane. They manage the property. Gethsemane is wholly owned by Lazarus. That's something worth knowing. But what I'm really pausing for here is to tell you this Mark, it seems pretty clear to me, that I've not read it for absolute certainty. This is our Mark, the Mark who wrote a gospel, the one who was the companion of St. Peter, and who wrote his gospel from Peter's recollections, but also it seems, I think, from Mark's recollections, because there's a scene in St. Mark's gospel when they're in Gethsemane, and the men come from the temple to arrest Jesus. The apostles run away, and it's mentioned a young man wearing only a tunic, which I think comes off. He runs, he gets away as well. And I've read at least one commentary. People wonder, who is this? He's not mentioned by the other evangelists. Is it Mark himself? Is this a bit of an autobiographical information? Well, I think it is, because indeed Mark is in Gethsemane and he does run. So this is the St. Mark of the Gospel, about whom we'd otherwise know next to nothing. We don't get vast amounts of information about Mark, even in the work of Maria Valtorta. But it's good to put a face to a Gospel, if I might put it like that. So continuing. As it said, Jonah, Mary and Mark are there outside, and they kneel down, worshipping Jesus. May peace remain with you, and may the Lord reward you for what you've given me, says Jesus, blessing them while passing by. Mark stands up saying, Lord, the olive groves along the Bethany road are full of disciples awaiting you. Go and tell them to go to the field of the Galileans. Mark darts away with all the speed of his young legs. So they've all come, said the apostles to one another. Further aside, sitting between Marjam and Mary of Clopas, there is the mother of the Lord. And she stands up when she sees him coming, worshipping him with all the palpitations of her heart of mother and believer. Come, mother, and you too, Mary, says Jesus, inviting them, when he sees them stand still, immobilized by his majesty that blazes as in the morning of the resurrection. But Jesus does not want to overwhelm with his majesty, and he kindly asks Mary of Alphaeus, are you alone? The others are ahead, with the shepherds and with Lazarus and all his family. But they left us here because, oh Jesus, 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 how shall I put up with not seeing you anymore? Blessed Jesus, my God, I who loved you even before you were born, I who wept so much over you when I did not know where you were after the slaughter. I who had my son in your smile after you came back, and all my blessings. Just a pause again. When Mary of Clopas, who's speaking now, says, I who wept so much over you when I did not know where you were after the slaughter. That was Mary of Clopas back in Nazareth, knowing that the Blessed Virgin and St. Joseph, who were from Nazareth, had gone for the census to Bethlehem. Then word gets back to Nazareth that King Herod had ordered the slaughter of huge numbers of young children. And so since Mary of Clopas knew the Blessed Virgin and St. Joseph were there in Bethlehem, then of course she would think that they'd all been killed. At least Jesus had been killed. Because that's what she's referring to. So continuing, I who had my son in your smile after you came back, and all my blessings. How many blessings, how many you've given me. Now I'm really becoming poor, a widow, all alone. While you were here, there was everything. I thought I'd experienced all sorrow that evening, but the very grief, all the sorrow of that day has dulled my mind. And yes, it was not so deep as it is now. And then there was the fact that you were going to rise. I seemed as if I could not believe it. But now I realise that I did believe it, because I did not feel what I'm feeling now, she says, weeping and panting, so much do her tears choke her. My good Mary, you are worrying just like a little boy who thinks that his mother does not love him and has abandoned him because she's gone to town to buy him presents that will make him happy, and it will soon go back to him to cover him with kisses and gifts. And am I not doing so with you? By the way, just to interrupt there, there was a time when I was very small and my mum had gone to the shops, and for some reason I got it into my head that she'd gone, just gone, and I was crying like anything out in the street. I can see the road now. I must have been playing with my friends, but I'm on my own, or maybe she'd taken me to part way down the streets and she'd gone off shopping, and I was crying, completely lost, and I was watching down the road, waiting for her, hoping she'd come back, but not sure she ever would. And eventually she did come back, and then I was okay. But why I got in that state, I don't know. So here we have Jesus talking about just that very thing. I think in my mother's case, she might have been going to get some basics, not particularly going to buy me some presents, but it was that effect. I don't know whether out there listening here, there are other adult men who remember back when they were little boys and they had this happen to them. But it's pretty amazing. And so he's talked about the little boy whose mother is coming back to cover him with kisses and gifts. And am I not doing so with you? Am I not going to prepare joy for you? Am I not going to come back and say to you, come, my dear relative and beloved disciple, mother of my beloved disciples? Am I not going to leave you, my love? Shall I give you my love, Mary? You know whether I love you. Do not weep so, but rejoice, because you will no longer see me despised and fatigued, no longer chaste and rich only in the love of a few people. And with my love I leave you my mother. John will be like a son to her, and I ask you to be a good sister to her, as you've always been. See? My mother is not weeping. She is aware that if her nostalgia for me is the file that will consume her heart, the weight will be always short as compared to the great joy of an eternal union. And she also knows that this parting of ours will not be so absolute as to make her say, I no longer have my son. That was her cry of sorrow on that day of sorrow. Now hope sings in her heart, I know that my son is ascending to his Father, but he will not leave me without his spiritual love. That is what you believe. And everybody. Here are the other men and women. Here are my shepherds. The faces of Lazarus and of his sisters among all the servants of Bethany. The face of Johanna like a rose under a veil of rain. And those of Eliza and of Nike, already marked by age and wrinkles, and now so deepened by pain, always pain for creatures, even if the soul rejoices because of the triumph of the Lord. The face of Anastasica, the lily faces of the first virgins, and the ascetic face of Isaac, the inspired one of Matthias, and the virile face of Manaen, and the severe ones of Joseph and Nicodemus. Faces, faces, faces. Jesus calls to himself the shepherds, Lazarus, Joseph, Nicodemus, Manaen, Maximinus, and the others of the 72 disciples. But he particularly keeps the shepherds close to himself, saying, Here, you were near the Lord who had come from heaven, bent over his annihilation. You are to be near the Lord who is going back to heaven with your souls rejoicing, because of his glorification. You've deserved this place because you did believe, notwithstanding that all the circumstances were unfavourable, and you were able to suffer for your faith. I thank you for your faithful love. I thank all of you, my friend Lazarus, you, Joseph, and you, Nicodemus, who took pity on the Christ when to do so might have been very dangerous. You, Manaen, who despised the filthy favours of an unclean man to follow me on my way. By the way, the filthy favours of an unclean man were the favours of Herod. Manaen was his half-brother, I think, and so he was Herod's chief steward. So, actually no, I'm getting mixed up. That's Chusa, who's Herod's chief steward. Manaen is Herod's half-brother. That's not Herod the Great, who was the cause of the slaughter of the innocents. He died. But this is Herod, one of his sons. And just by the way, the shepherds are the very shepherds who were there at the first Christmas. Yes, they don't disappear into history. They have their own story, which I must tell in another video. But they are faithful to Jesus. They are evangelists. They are wonderful people. And I'll go into them another time. So, just to resume. You, Manaen, who despised the filthy favours of an unclean man to follow me on my way. You, Stephen, flowery crown of justice, who left what was imperfect for what was perfect, and will be crowned with a garland with which you are not yet acquainted, but will be announced to you by the angels. You, John, for a short period of time, brother to the most pure breast, and who have come more to the light than to the sight. You, Nicolaus, who as a proselyte have been able to console me for the grief of the sons of this nation. And you, good women disciples, stronger in your kindness than Judith. And you, Margem, my child, and from now on you will be called Marshall, in remembrance of the Roman boy killed on the road and laid at Lazarus' gate, with the defying script, quotes, and now tell a Galilean to bring you back to life again if he's the Christ and has risen from the dead. End quote. The last of the innocents who lost their lives in Palestine to serve me also unconsciously, and the first of the innocents of every nation who having come to the Christ will be hated for that, and extinguished prematurely, like buds of flowers torn off the stems before blooming. And may this name, O Marshal, show you your future destiny. Be the apostle in barbarian countries, and conquer them to your Lord, as my love conquered the Roman boy to heaven. I'll just pause for a moment. Just going back to Stephen. Of course, this is Saint Stephen, who is the first martyr, whose martyrdom is described in the Acts of the Apostles. And we have the mention of Margem, who then takes the name Marshall. Well, this is, well, actually before that, just to go through it, there's a mention of the love of the women disciples stronger than the kindness of Judith. And this is one reason. Judith is quoted, as are other, what we call deuterocanonical books, quoted by Jesus in this work. And it really shows that we Catholics are right, and the Eastern Orthodox are right, to possess these books in our Bible, as indeed they're in the Septuagint anyway, from which the evangelists quote when they're quoting the Old Testament in the Gospels. So for the Protestants to have removed the 7 deuterocanonical books is a grave mistake. It's illogical anyway, because if they can remove those, why shouldn't they remove any others that they don't like, as Martin Luther was proposing to do with the letter of James and I think the book of Revelation. But to go into that would be to go into things which I go into in Hyde Park. So I'll leave that to one side. Just back to Margem. Margem was a boy that Jesus saved from starvation. And now he's given him the name of Marshall. Well, there is a Saint Marshall. And this seems to be him. So after Jesus has spoken thus of St. Martial, and he talks about a Roman boy who was murdered, which is another event in the poem of the Man God. You're all blessed by me in this farewell. As from the Father I invoke the reward for those who have comforted the sorrowful journey of the Son of Man. Blessed be mankind in the chosen part there is among Hebrews and Gentiles, and that has manifested itself in its love for me. Blessed be the earth with its herbs and flowers, and its fruits that have given me pleasure and refreshment so many times. Blessed be the earth with its waters and its tepidness, for its birds and its animals, that many a time exceeded man in giving relief to the Son of Man. May you be blessed, sun, and you sea, and you mountains, hills, and plains. Blessed you stars, my companions in my night prayers, and in my sorrow, and you, moon, who illuminated me as I wandered around in my pilgrimages of the evangelizer. May all you creatures be blessed, the works of my Father, my companions in this mortal hour, friendly to him who had left heaven to relieve tortured mankind of the troubles of the sin that separates from God. And may you also be blessed, you innocent instruments of my torture, thorns, metals, wood, twisted hemp, because you've assisted me in fulfilling the will of my Father. That, as I interrupt the narrative again, it's an echo of Daniel chapter 3, where where the Holy Spirit inspired Daniel to sing the hymn which is recited in the divine office. So all you works of the Lord have blessed the Lord. Fire and heat bless the Lord. Snow and mist bless the Lord. Wild beasts and tame bless the Lord. Frost and hail bless the Lord. And so on and so on. And it's also reminiscent of Saint Francis of Assisi, who speaks to creation and the things of creation as if they're sentient beings. But there's a sense in which we can speak and speak to the inanimate objects of the world, because they come to us from God. And that's what St. Francis of Assisi was doing. But I shall resume the narrative again. How thundering is Jesus' voice. It spreads through the tepid calm air like a bronze gong that has been struck. It propagates in waves over the sea of faces looking at him from all directions. I say that there are hundreds of people around Jesus as he goes up with his more beloved ones towards the top of the Mount of Olives. But when Jesus arrives at the field of the Galileans, in which there are no tents in this period of time between the two festivities, he says to his disciples, "Stop the people where they are, and then follow me." He climbs further up, as far as the highest summit of the mountain, the one closer to Bethany, which it dominates from above than to Jerusalem. Close to him are his mother, the apostles, Lazarus, the shepherds, and Margam. Farther away in a semicircle are the other disciples to hold the people back. Jesus is standing on a large stone that protrudes a little and stands out in its whiteness among the grass of a clearing. He is brightly illuminated by the sun that makes his garment shine as white as snow and his hair like gold. His eyes sparkle in a divine light. He opens out his arms in the gesture of an embrace. He seems to be wishing to press to his chest the multitudes of the earth, whom his spirit sees represented in that crowd. His unforgettable, inimitable voice gives the last order. Go in my name to evangelize the peoples as far as the ends of the earth. God be with you. May his love comfort you. May his light guide you. May his peace dwell in you until you reach eternal life. He becomes transfigured in beauty, handsome as handsome and even more so than he was on Tabor. They all fall on their knees worshipping. While he is already rising from the stone on which he is standing, he looks once again for the face of his mother, and his smile reaches a power that no one will ever be able to express. It is his last goodbye to his mother. He rises, the sun now more free to kiss him, as no foliage, not even a thin leaf intercepts its beams, brightens with its splendour the God-man, who with his most holy body is ascending to heaven, and displays his glorious wounds that shine like living rubies. The rest is a pearly smile of light, and it is really the light that is revealing itself for what it is at this last moment, as on Christmas night. Creation sparkles in the light of the Christ who is ascending, a light exceeding that of the sun, a superhuman and most blissful light, a light descending from heaven to meet the light ascending to it. And Jesus Christ, the Word of God, disappears from the sight of men in this ocean of brightness. On the earth, only two noises in the deep silence of the ecstatic crowd: the cry of Mary when he disappears, "Jesus!" and the weeping of Isaac. The others are struck dumb with religious astonishment, and they remain there as if they were waiting until two snow-white angelical lights in human form appear, repeating the words mentioned in the first chapter of the Acts of the Apostles. And there the vision comes to an end.